They doubted you. They laughed. They minimized you. Good. Because doubt is not your obstacle, it's your fuel. Every look that said, "you can't," is energy you haven't cashed in yet. Every joke at your expense is proof you're playing a bigger game than they are. This isn't about revenge. This is about conversion, turning disbelief into discipline, silence into results, and pressure into power. Let them laugh now. They won't later. And by the time they understand what you've built, you won't be around to explain it. Welcome to a chapter a day. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Chapter 1. Stop explaining yourself. Let's get something clear right now. The moment you feel the urge to explain yourself, you've already given up ground. That urge isn't harmless. It isn't polite. It isn't maturity. It's insecurity in a clean suit. You don't explain when you're certain. You explain when you want approval. You explain when you're hoping someone else will validate a decision you already know you need to make. And that's the trap. Because dominant people don't explain. They move. They build. They execute. And when the results arrive, the explanation becomes unnecessary. That's the key. You have a choice. You can keep wasting energy trying to be understood, or you can invest that energy into becoming undeniable. Explanations leak energy. Execution multiplies it. Read that again. Explanations leak energy. Execution multiplies it. Every sentence you speak trying to justify your path is a sentence not spent walking it. You don't need their permission. And yet most people spend their lives unconsciously asking for it. They explain their goals to friends who don't have discipline. They explain their ambitions to family members who fear risk. They explain their work ethic to people addicted to comfort. And then they wonder why they feel drained. You have a choice. Either you become the kind of person who needs approval, or the kind of person whose presence rewrites the room. It's not about being rude. It's not about being arrogant. It's about being anchored. Let me tell you something you won't hear often. If you need someone to understand your plan before you act, you don't believe in it yet. Because belief doesn't negotiate. Belief doesn't poll. Belief doesn't ask, "Does this make sense to you?" Belief moves first and lets the world catch up later. Look at high performers across any domain. Athletes, entrepreneurs, artists, leaders. In the beginning, they were misunderstood, misjudged, labeled unrealistic, obsessive, extreme. And do you know what they didn't do? They didn't correct the narrative. They didn't hold meetings to clarify their vision. They didn't post long explanations online. They didn't beg for belief. They outgrew the conversation. That's the move. You don't defeat doubt with words. You defeat it with time and consistency. Explanations leak energy. Execution multiplies it. Here's the behavioral shift. Starting now, when someone questions your direction, you don't argue. When they say, "Why are you doing that?" you don't defend. When they say, "That doesn't seem realistic," you don't convince. You say less, and you do more. Because every explanation trains people to believe they get a vote in your life. They don't. You have a choice. Either you outsource your confidence, or you internalize it and let your actions speak. That's the key. Let's be honest. Most explanations are fear in disguise. Fear of being judged. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being alone in your conviction. But leadership is lonely at first. So is growth. So is discipline. If you're doing something that actually matters, someone will doubt it. That's not a sign you're wrong. That's a sign you're early. And early always feels uncomfortable. Here's what dominant people understand. Time is their most valuable asset. And explanations are a terrible investment. They give you no return. They change no minds. They only temporarily soothe your anxiety. And then you're right back where you started. Drained, distracted, delayed. It's not about being misunderstood. It's about being effective. Say that again. It's not about being misunderstood. It's about being effective. Effectiveness doesn't require applause. It requires discipline. And discipline doesn't announce itself. It compounds quietly. Let's make this practical. Here's what you stop doing immediately. You stop explaining your schedule. You stop explaining your goals. You stop explaining why you can't attend, can't stay out late, can't waste time. No long stories. No justifications. No emotional essays. You say, I'm busy. You say, I have priorities. You say nothing at all. And then you follow through. That's the key. Silence backed by consistency creates authority. Not volume. Not persuasion. Not charisma. Authority. And authority changes how people treat you. When you explain, you lower yourself to the level of debate. When you execute, you rise above it. You don't need their permission. Let me repeat that until it settles in. You don't need their permission. Not to work harder. Not to think bigger. Not to demand more from yourself. And definitely not to change your life. Every great transformation starts with a private decision. A decision no one applauds. A decision no one fully understands. A decision that looks strange from the outside. And that's exactly why it works. Because while others are talking, you're building. While others are questioning, you're practicing. While others are explaining, you're stacking days. Explanations leak energy. Execution multiplies it. This chapter isn't about becoming silent forever. It's about becoming silent until it matters. You'll speak later, with results. And when you do, the same people who doubted you will say, I always knew you had it in you. And you'll smile. Not because they finally understand, but because their understanding is irrelevant now. You didn't win by being understood. You won by being consistent. You made a choice. You stopped explaining. You started executing. And that decision sets the tone for everything that follows. You mastered silence in your words. Now it's time to recognize what their doubt really means and how to use it as leverage. Chapter 2. Their doubt is proof you're ahead. Here's a truth most people never learn. People don't doubt what's safe. They don't mock what feels familiar. They don't attack what fits inside their comfort zone. They only doubt what threatens them. Let that sink in. Doubt is not random. Mockery is not accidental. Dismissal is not neutral. It's reactive. When someone questions your ambition, your discipline, your goals, it's rarely about you. It's about what your movement exposes in them. Their stagnation, their fear, their unfulfilled potential. That's the key. You have a choice. You can interpret doubt as a warning sign, or you can recognize it as confirmation you're moving ahead of the curve. If they doubt you, you're early. If they mock you, you're close. Say it again. If they doubt you, you're early. If they mock you, you're close. People who are comfortable don't like reminders that growth is possible. It creates pressure. It creates comparison. It creates responsibility. And most people would rather doubt you than confront themselves. That's not cruelty. That's human nature. When you step outside the norm, you disrupt the silent agreement everyone else has made. Don't try too hard. Don't stand out. Don't make us uncomfortable. And the moment you break that agreement, you become a mirror. A mirror they don't want to look into. So they doubt. They joke. They minimize. Not because you're wrong, but because you're dangerous to their excuses. You don't need their permission. History proves this again and again. Innovators were laughed at before they were copied. Athletes were doubted before they dominated. Leaders were ridiculed before they were followed. Every single time. The pattern never changes. The only thing that changes is whether you internalize the doubt or use it. Look at any breakthrough figure. They were called unrealistic, obsessive, arrogant, lucky, anything except disciplined, because discipline forces people to confront what they lack. And most would rather tear you down than build themselves up. That's the key. It's not about you being special. It's about you being early. Early always looks foolish. Early always looks unnecessary. Early always looks extreme. Until it becomes the standard. Then everyone claims they believed all along. You have a choice. You can shrink to make others comfortable, or you can accept that discomfort is the tax for growth. And here's the part most people miss. Doubt intensifies right before breakthroughs. Why? Because your consistency starts to separate you from the pack. At first, people laugh. Then they question. Then they watch quietly. That transition matters. Mockery turns into observation when people sense momentum. And observation turns into silence when they realize you're not stopping. If they doubt you, you're early. If they mock you, you're close. That phrase isn't motivation. It's a diagnostic tool. Doubt tells you where you are on the timeline. Early on, you're ignored. Then you're doubted. Then you're mocked. Then you're watched. Then you're respected. Most people quit in the doubt phase. That's why most people never make it. They confuse resistance with rejection. But resistance is feedback. It means you're pushing against something real. Comfort never produces resistance. Growth does. And instead of backing off, dominant people lean in. They don't argue with doubters. They don't defend their vision. They increase output. That's the behavioral shift. When doubt shows up, you don't slow down. You don't overthink. You don't explain. You work harder. You get sharper. You get more disciplined. Because it's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself consistent. Say it again. It's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself consistent. Consistency is the language doubt doesn't understand. You can't debate it. You can't ridicule it away. You can't ignore it forever. Time exposes everything. And this is where most people self-sabotage. They start performing for the doubters. They rush results. They seek validation. That's a mistake. Validation is a distraction. You don't need applause mid-process. You need standards. That's the key. Your job is not to be believed. Your job is to be relentless. Belief follows results. Always. If someone doubts you today, it means your future is unfamiliar to them. Good. If someone mocks you, it means your discipline highlights their lack of it. Even better. You're not here to be liked. You're here to build. And building is lonely before it's respected. You have a choice. You can absorb the doubt emotionally, or you can convert it operationally. Emotion drains you. Operation strengthens you. So here's what you do next time someone doubts you. You don't react. You don't defend. You note it. You say to yourself, I'm early. And you keep moving. Next time someone mocks your effort, your routine, your goals, you don't get angry. You don't get insecure. You smile internally. I'm close. That mindset keeps you steady. Because doubt no longer means stop. It means stay the course. That's the difference between people who plateau and people who break through. One group seeks comfort. The other seeks alignment with their long-term vision. And vision doesn't ask for consensus. Vision demands commitment. You don't need their permission. You don't need their belief. You need your discipline. If they doubt you, you're early. If they mock you, you're close. This chapter is about reframing resistance. Doubt isn't a stop sign. It's a signal that you're no longer invisible, a signal that your effort is noticeable, a signal that your future trajectory threatens the present comfort of others. That's not a problem. That's progress. And if you can hold your nerve through doubt, if you can stay disciplined through mockery, if you can keep executing without explanation, you separate yourself permanently. Because while others are reacting emotionally, you're moving strategically. You made a choice. You stopped interpreting doubt as danger. You started seeing it as confirmation. And now that you understand what doubt really means, it's time to decide how you'll use it. Not emotionally, not impulsively, but daily, deliberately, as fuel. You've learned to stop explaining. You've learned to recognize doubt as proof you're ahead. Now let's turn that pressure into power. Chapter 3. Use disbelief as daily fuel. Disbelief is coming whether you want it or not. People will question you. They will doubt your consistency. They will test your resolve. The difference is not if disbelief shows up. The difference is what you do with it. Because disbelief has two possible outcomes. It can drain you, or it can drive you. And discipline decides which. That's the key. Most people react emotionally. They get angry. They get defensive. They get distracted. They replay conversations in their head. They imagine arguments. They fantasize about proving someone wrong. And while they're emotionally busy, they're operationally stagnant. You have a choice. You can waste disbelief emotionally, or you can convert it into execution. Say this with me. I don't get emotional, I get effective. Again, I don't get emotional, I get effective. That phrase is not a slogan. It's a behavioral command. Emotion without structure is chaos. Emotion with discipline becomes fuel. The problem is not anger. The problem is unmanaged anger. The problem is not frustration. The problem is unfocused frustration. High performers don't eliminate emotion. They channel it. They don't sit with resentment. They schedule it. They don't stew in irritation. They turn it into output. That's the shift. When someone doubts you and you feel that surge, that tightening in your chest, that urge to react, you pause. You don't speak. You don't post. You don't explain. You act. You train harder. You work longer. You sharpen your skills. Because effectiveness is the only response that compounds. I don't get emotional. I get effective. Let's break this down practically. Every emotion is energy. Anger is energy. Frustration is energy. Resentment is energy. Most people leak it through reaction. Complaining. Arguing. Self-sabotage. Dominant people compress it into discipline. They ask one question. What action does this emotion demand? Not, how do I feel? But, what do I do next? That's the key. Disbelief becomes a trigger. Not for defense, but for routine. Someone doubts your work ethic. You tighten your schedule. Someone mocks your goals. You increase your standards. Someone questions your consistency. You remove distractions. Emotion becomes instruction, and instruction becomes habit. You have a choice. You can let disbelief live rent-free in your mind, or you can put it to work, because every time you replay a negative comment, you're giving it attention without return. But every time you turn that same comment into effort, you're extracting value. That's leverage. High performers are not emotionally numb. They're emotionally efficient. They don't suppress feelings. They convert them. And conversion requires structure. This is where most people fail. They try to stay positive. They try to ignore the haters. That's weak advice. You don't ignore disbelief. You harness it. You write it down. You schedule your response, not verbally, but behaviorally. You say, because of this, I will do this. That's how discipline is built. I don't get emotional, I get effective. Here's a rule. If an emotion doesn't lead to action, it leads to decay. Unprocessed emotion turns into bitterness. Processed emotion turns into progress. And processing means movement. Physical movement. Mental movement. Strategic movement. When disbelief hits, your body should respond before your mouth does. You move. You lift. You write. You study. You execute. Because action clears the mind. Let me be clear. This is not about revenge. Revenge keeps you tied to the source. This is about independence. You don't act to prove them wrong. You act to move yourself forward. That distinction matters. If you're fueled by proving others wrong, you're still reactive. If you're fueled by your own standards, you're free. That's the key. Disbelief is just the spark. Discipline is the engine. Without discipline, the spark burns out. With discipline, it powers years of consistency. So you build systems, non-negotiable routines, clear metrics, daily execution blocks. You don't ask how you feel before you act. You act, and your feelings follow. That's dominance. I don't get emotional, I get effective. Say it again. I don't get emotional, I get effective. The more you repeat this behavior, the faster the transformation. Eventually, disbelief stops feeling personal. It becomes predictable. You expect it when you level up. And when you expect it, it loses its power. Because you already know what to do. You don't spiral. You don't stall. You execute. You have a choice. You can be ruled by emotion, or you can be guided by standards. Standards don't care how you feel. They care what you do. And what you do repeatedly becomes who you are. This chapter is about emotional alchemy, turning pressure into performance, turning doubt into discipline, turning resentment into results. You don't get emotional. You get effective. You've learned how to stop explaining. You've learned how to recognize doubt as proof you're ahead. Now you've learned how to turn disbelief into fuel. But fuel needs containment. And the most powerful container for discipline is silence. Because the less you talk, the more energy you have to execute. You've mastered emotional control. Now it's time to weaponize quiet. Chapter 4. Silence is a weapon. Silence is misunderstood. Most people think silence is weakness. They think it means you have nothing to say. They think it means you're unsure. That's because most people use silence by accident. Dominant people use it deliberately. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is control. And control creates power. That's the key. When you speak less, people listen more. When you explain less, people assume more. When you move quietly, people feel pressure, even if they don't know why. Silence creates mystery. Mystery creates attention. Attention creates psychological leverage. You have a choice. You can announce every move, or you can let the results interrupt the room. One leaks energy. The other concentrates it. Move quietly. Win loudly. Say it again. Move quietly. Win loudly. People who talk early are usually looking for validation. They want reassurance. They want encouragement. They want someone to tell them they're doing the right thing. That's not confidence. That's dependency. And dependency is fragile. Because the moment validation disappears, so does momentum. Winners don't need witnesses during the process. They need discipline. They don't narrate their growth. They build it. Think about it. The loudest people are rarely the most effective. They're the most insecure. They broadcast effort because they're unsure of outcome. Dominant people understand something different. If you're really working, you don't have time to talk about it. If you're really focused, you don't need to be seen. That's the key. Silence protects momentum. Every time you speak about your plans, you release dopamine prematurely. Your brain gets a reward before the work is done, and that reward makes you softer. That's why talking feels good and produces nothing. Execution feels boring and changes everything. You don't need their permission. You don't need their applause. You need privacy. Privacy is where discipline grows. Let's talk about psychological pressure. When you explain yourself, people relax. They think they understand you. They think they've figured you out. When you stay silent, they don't know where you stand. And uncertainty makes people uneasy. They watch more closely. They speculate. They fill the gaps with their own assumptions. That's power. You didn't say a word, and yet you shifted the dynamic. Silence forces others to reveal themselves. The insecure talk. The doubtful mock. The curious observe. And you learn everything without exposing anything. Move quietly. Win loudly. Here's where most people mess this up. They think silence means isolation. They think it means cutting everyone off. That's not the point. Silence is not withdrawal. It's selectivity. You still act. You still show up. You still execute. You just stop narrating your intentions. You stop announcing your next move. You stop explaining your progress. You stop inviting opinions into unfinished work. That's how momentum stays intact. Because unfinished work is fragile. It needs protection, not commentary. You have a choice. You can invite noise into your process, or you can protect it until it's unbreakable. Silence is a filter. Only the serious survive it. Those who need reassurance drift away. Those who respect discipline stay out of your way. And that's exactly what you want. Let's be honest. Most criticism enters your life because you opened the door. You asked for opinions. You shared too early. You over-explained. Silence closes that door. And closed doors keep distractions out. That's the key. High performers are not secretive because they're afraid. They're selective because they're focused. They understand that attention is a currency. And every unnecessary conversation is a tax. So they invest attention inward, into routines, into systems, into standards. And while others are talking about what they want to do, they're quietly becoming someone new. Move quietly. Win loudly. There's another layer to this. Silence builds inner authority. When you stop talking about what you're going to do, you're forced to confront whether you'll actually do it. No audience, no praise, no external pressure. Just you and your standards. And that's where real discipline is forged. Anyone can perform when they're being watched. Very few can execute when no one cares. Silence reveals commitment. That's why it's uncomfortable at first. You feel invisible. You feel unnoticed. Good. Invisibility is freedom. Freedom to make mistakes. Freedom to adjust. Freedom to grow without judgment. Most people never reach their potential because they try to look successful before they are. Silence removes that temptation. You stop performing. You start producing. You have a choice. You can look busy, or you can be effective. Effectiveness doesn't announce itself. It accumulates. And then one day, it shows up fully formed. That's when you win loudly. Not with words. With outcomes. With discipline made visible. With consistency that can't be denied. And here's the final shift. When you move quietly long enough, people stop doubting out loud. They don't know what you're doing, but they sense movement. And that uncertainty creates respect. Not admiration. Respect. Because respect doesn't come from charisma. It comes from restraint. Restraint signals control. Control signals competence. And competence speaks without sound. Move quietly. Win loudly. This chapter is about energy conservation. About protecting your focus. About using silence as armor and as leverage. You don't need to announce your evolution. Let it surprise them. You've learned to stop explaining. You've learned to see doubt as confirmation. You've learned to convert disbelief into fuel. Now you've learned how silence amplifies all of it. But silence alone isn't enough. Because silence without direction becomes isolation. The next step is knowing why you're doing all this. And refusing to dilute it just to be understood. You've mastered quiet. Now it's time to release the need for approval altogether. Chapter 5. Stop trying to be understood. Here's a brutal truth you need to hear right now. Wanting to be understood keeps you small. It keeps you timid. It keeps you negotiating for permission. It keeps you explaining yourself before you even have results to show. Most people want understanding before they move. They want reassurance before they execute. They want validation before they act. That's weakness disguised as courtesy. Greatness doesn't ask for comprehension. Greatness doesn't pause to explain itself. Greatness often moves in ways that are misunderstood until it's undeniable. And that's exactly the point. Understanding is optional. Results are not. Say it again. Understanding is optional. Results are not. Let that sink in. When you demand understanding, you hand control of your progress to someone else. You make your focus dependent on their approval. You make your confidence conditional. That's not discipline. That's a leash. Look at history. Every innovator, every entrepreneur, every high performer was doubted. They were rejected. They were isolated. Steve Jobs was mocked for his vision. His ideas seemed crazy. People didn't get him. Elon Musk was ridiculed for electric cars and rockets. His ideas sounded impossible. People didn't understand him. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. They didn't understand his potential. They didn't believe in him. And yet, none of them waited to be understood. They didn't plead. They didn't explain. They executed. Because they understood one thing. Understanding is optional. Results are not. Say it again, slower. Understanding is optional. Results are not. Every day you spend trying to explain your path is a day wasted. Every sentence spent convincing others of your ability is a sentence not spent building it. And let's be honest, most people won't understand you until you're already ahead, until your results are undeniable, until your work speaks louder than their doubts, until your success is the only explanation anyone needs. Understanding is optional. Results are not. Here's the behavioral shift you must make. Stop seeking comprehension. Stop asking for approval. Stop waiting for people to get it. Instead, start producing. Start building. Start executing. The world doesn't reward explanations. It rewards outcomes. And outcomes are visible. Explanations are invisible. Think about your daily life. How much time do you spend explaining what you're doing, why you're doing it, or how far you've come? How much time do you spend crafting the perfect justification for your choices? That's energy wasted. Energy that could have been spent improving, training, or producing. The greats don't do that. They act. They deliver. They produce. And only after the results are undeniable does the world adjust its understanding. No one believed in Wright brothers at first. No one understood the first airplane. No one understood the first flight. But it happened anyway. No one believed in Oprah early in her career. No one understood her vision. But she kept building anyway. No one believed in Tesla, SpaceX, or Michael Jordan until it was too late to ignore them. Understanding is optional. Results are not. Repeat it until it sinks in. Understanding is optional. Results are not. This is the mental armor you need. You don't need validation. You don't need agreement. You don't need comprehension. You need results. You need discipline. You need consistency. Because results don't require anyone's belief. Results don't ask permission. Results don't negotiate. They speak for themselves. And that's why greatness often feels lonely at first. Because you're moving in directions others can't yet see. Because your actions are ahead of their understanding. Because your discipline exposes the limits of their imagination. Stop trying to make people understand you. Stop softening your moves to be palatable. Stop explaining your methods before they're proven. Instead, focus on the work. Focus on the craft. Focus on becoming undeniable. Understanding is optional. Results are not. Repeat one more time. Understanding is optional. Results are not. Every step you take, every hour you spend, every decision you make should be aligned with producing outcomes, not appeasing understanding. You've mastered silence. You've converted disbelief into fuel. Now, you remove the need for comprehension altogether. Because the only thing that matters is what you produce. The only thing that matters is what you leave behind. The only thing that matters is the undeniable proof of your discipline. You don't need them to understand. You don't need them to believe. You just need to show up. You just need to execute. Understanding is optional. Results are not. Next, we take this principle a step further. If understanding isn't required, influence becomes about distance and alignment. And sometimes growth demands outgrowing the room. Chapter 6. Outgrow the room. Here's a truth that cuts deep. Most doubt doesn't come from strangers. It comes from familiarity. Family. Friends. People who knew you before you decided to change. That's where the resistance is strongest. Because when you grow, you don't just change your life. You disrupt the roles everyone assigned you. And not everyone is willing to update their picture of you. That's the key. Doubters often come from familiar spaces because familiarity creates expectations. They expect you to stay the same. They expect you to fit the old pattern. They expect you to make choices that keep them comfortable. So when you change, it feels like betrayal to them. Not because you did something wrong, but because you did something different. You have a choice. You can shrink to preserve comfort, or you can grow and accept separation. Growth requires separation, not permission. Say it again. Growth requires separation, not permission. This is where most people stall. They want approval from people who benefit from them staying small. They want encouragement from people who've never taken a risk. They want understanding from people who are terrified of change. That's an impossible equation. If they can't see your vision, it's because it's not theirs. Again, if they can't see your vision, it's because it's not theirs. Your vision wasn't given to them. Your hunger wasn't planted in them. Your dissatisfaction didn't wake them up. So stop expecting them to understand. Familiar environments are powerful, but they're also limiting. They reinforce old habits, old identities, old ceilings. You can't evolve in a space designed to keep you recognizable. That's the hard truth. Every level of growth requires a level of distance. Distance from old conversations. Distance from old expectations. Distance from people who only know the previous version of you. And distance feels like rejection at first. But it's not rejection. It's alignment. High performers understand this early. They don't ask, why don't they support me? They ask, what environment do I need to become who I'm aiming at? That's the key. Look at anyone who broke through. They were isolated before they were admired, misunderstood before they were respected, questioned before they were followed. Not because they were arrogant, but because they were committed. Commitment creates friction with familiarity. Because familiarity wants predictability. Growth demands disruption. You have a choice. You can stay close to what's familiar, or you can step into what's necessary. And necessary often feels lonely. Let's be clear. Outgrowing the room doesn't mean hating the room. It means recognizing when it no longer fits. You don't have to argue. You don't have to explain. You don't have to cut people off dramatically. You simply adjust your exposure. Less time, less access, less emotional investment, more focus, more discipline, more alignment. That's how growth happens quietly, because every room has a ceiling. And if you keep hitting your head, the problem isn't effort. It's altitude. If they can't see your vision, it's because it's not theirs. Most people aren't trying to sabotage you. They're trying to preserve themselves. Your growth highlights their comfort. Your discipline highlights their excuses. Your ambition highlights their settling. And that creates tension. So they discourage. They joke. They minimize. Not to hurt you, but to calm themselves. You don't fight that. You move beyond it. You don't need their permission. You need your standards. And standards require an environment that supports them. That might mean new routines, new circles, new inputs, different conversations, different expectations, different norms. This is where the real separation happens. Not physically, but mentally. You stop seeking advice from people who've never built what you want. You stop sharing dreams with people who only speak fear. You stop negotiating your future with people anchored in the past. That's the shift. You don't announce it. You don't debate it. You just live differently. Outgrowing the room often feels like betrayal to others and guilt to you. But guilt is a signal you're crossing an old boundary. And old boundaries are exactly what limit growth. You have a choice. You can carry guilt and stay small, or you can carry responsibility and grow. Responsibility to your potential. Responsibility to your future self. That responsibility outweighs comfort. Every time. If they can't see your vision, it's because it's not theirs. Let that release you. Release you from explaining. Release you from convincing. Release you from waiting. Because waiting for permission keeps you trapped in rooms you've already outgrown. And here's the part most people miss. When you outgrow the room, new rooms appear. Rooms where discipline is normal, where ambition is expected, where growth is respected. But you don't get access to those rooms while clinging to the old one. Transition requires letting go. And letting go feels like loss, until you realize what you've gained. Clarity, focus, momentum. You start moving faster because you're no longer carrying dead weight. Dead weight isn't people. It's patterns. Patterns of seeking approval. Patterns of explaining yourself. Patterns of staying available to energy that drains you. Outgrowing the room is about shedding those patterns. And once you do, everything accelerates. This chapter is about honesty. Honesty about where you are. Honesty about where you're trying to go. And honesty about whether your environment supports that journey. Most don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they refuse to leave environments that suffocate it. You don't need to burn bridges. You just need to stop living on them. If they can't see your vision, it's because it's not theirs. Say it one last time. If they can't see your vision, it's because it's not theirs. You've learned to stop explaining. You've learned to see doubt as confirmation. You've learned to turn disbelief into fuel. You've learned to use silence as a weapon. And now you've learned when growth requires distance. But once you've outgrown the room, there's one final trap waiting. The temptation to seek opinions in new spaces. To replace old validation with new validation. That's just the same mistake in a different room. So next, we talk about immunity. Immunity to praise. Immunity to criticism. Immunity to opinions altogether. You've changed environments. Now it's time to change your internal filters. Chapter 7. Build while they watch. Here's the truth most people never learn. People are always watching. And most of the time, they're waiting for you to fail. They're hoping your plans collapse so they can feel justified. They're counting on your inconsistencies to validate their own comfort. So what do most people do? They announce progress. They post updates. They explain, justify, and justify again. And every announcement leaks energy. Every explanation steals momentum. Every validation-seeking post reduces results. No updates, just outcomes. Say it with me. No updates, just outcomes. That's the key. High performers don't perform for an audience. They build quietly. They stack days. They stack weeks. They stack months. All without applause. This is the difference between a show and a life of impact. Observers become witnesses. At first, they notice nothing. Then they notice small progress. Then they notice momentum. Then suddenly results appear. And when the results arrive, no explanation is needed. The evidence speaks for itself. The work is undeniable. The story writes itself. No updates, just outcomes. Say it again. No updates, just outcomes. Here's what most people get wrong. They believe visibility equals influence. They think constant communication signals power. They believe frequent updates inspire confidence. Wrong. Frequent updates only reveal insecurity. They signal a need for reassurance. They leak energy to people who don't care enough to act. High performers know better. They understand the compounding power of quiet consistency. Every day you stack without spectacle, you build leverage. Every hour you invest in private execution strengthens your future authority. Every disciplined choice compounds silently until it becomes unstoppable. Observers don't matter in the moment. The witness matters at the end. Imagine this. Someone doubts your consistency. They mock your early efforts. They question whether you're serious. They are watching. And while they watch, you act. You produce. You execute. No words. No posts. No explanations. Days turn into weeks. Weeks turn into months. Months turn into undeniable results. And then they see it. They see what all your quiet discipline created. They see the success that didn't need commentary. They see outcomes that can't be ignored. No updates, just outcomes. This is the mindset shift you must adopt. Your work is for your growth. Your growth doesn't require validation. Your results are not dependent on approval. Every notification you resist posting, every opportunity to announce that you're working you ignore, compounds your authority. Observers may doubt. They may whisper. They may mock. Good. Let them watch. Because when outcomes speak, disbelief becomes irrelevant. Here's another truth. People rarely notice effort. They notice results. Hours in the gym aren't impressive. Pages written aren't impressive. Training sessions, practice runs, learning curves, all invisible. But results are undeniable. The quiet confidence of stacking effort over time produces a type of power words cannot match. No updates, just outcomes. And this is what separates the plateaued from the dominant. The plateaued seek attention. The dominant build while they watch. The plateaued justify every choice. The dominant execute without commentary. The plateaued rely on validation. The dominant rely on discipline. Say it again. No updates, just outcomes. You have to trust the process. You have to trust the quiet accumulation of effort. You have to trust that months of unseen work will eventually manifest as undeniable impact. When you do this, you stop being reactive. You stop seeking approval. You stop needing understanding. You become strategic. You become consistent. You become unstoppable. Because discipline doesn't announce itself. Consistency doesn't brag. Execution doesn't ask permission. No updates, just outcomes. Observers will eventually become witnesses. They will see what you built silently. They will recognize the difference between those who talk and those who do. They will realize that outcomes are worth more than applause. And when they witness it, it will be undeniable. No explanations. No commentary, no updates, just results. You've learned to stop seeking understanding. You've learned to convert disbelief into fuel. You've learned to wield silence as a weapon. Now you learn to stack time, effort, and discipline quietly, and let outcomes make the statement for you. This is the ultimate form of leverage. You don't perform for them. You perform for yourself. You perform to prove what consistent action can create. And when your work speaks, there's nothing left to argue about. No updates, just outcomes. Next, we take this quiet dominance and turn it inward. We build immunity to distraction, praise, and criticism, because stacking quietly is only powerful if your focus is unbreakable. Chapter 8. Become immune to opinions. Here's a truth that most people never fully grasp. Opinions are worthless unless you give them power. Every day, people try to influence you. Some offer praise. Some offer criticism. Some offer both in equal doses. And most people react. They chase approval. They fear rejection. They argue, defend, explain. All because they assigned opinions authority they don't deserve. That ends now. Noise doesn't move me. Standards do. Say it again. Noise doesn't move me. Standards do. Your mission is to train mental detachment. Detach from praise. Detach from criticism. Detach from opinions altogether. The goal isn't arrogance. It's clarity. It's freedom. It's focus. High performers operate on one axis, standards. Not attention. Not validation. Not consensus. Noise doesn't move me. Standards do. Let's break this down. Praise feels good, temporarily. Compliments spark dopamine. Approval feels like fuel. But when your energy depends on external validation, you're weak. You're reactive. You're unstable. Criticism triggers fear, doubt, and distraction. It can break your momentum if you let it. But if you detach from both, praise and criticism, you become untouchable. Noise doesn't move me. Standards do. Say it again louder. Noise doesn't move me. Standards do. Here's a simple rule. If the opinion does not lead to action that improves your craft, ignores your standards, or distracts from your mission, it is irrelevant. Ignore it. Process it once if needed, then discard it. Do not debate. Do not justify. Do not internalize. Every second spent arguing with someone's opinion is a second stolen from execution. Imagine Elon Musk reading every tweet about SpaceX. Imagine Michael Jordan reacting to every critique from his coaches. Imagine Oprah fretting over every doubter who couldn't see her vision. None of them did. And that's why they won. Noise doesn't move me. Standards do. Here's how to build immunity. Step 1. Awareness. Notice when an opinion triggers an emotional response. Anger, fear, doubt. That's the signal. Label it. Say, this is noise. Step 2. Detachment. Separate the message from the messenger. Just because someone says it doesn't make it true. Just because it stings doesn't mean it matters. Step 3. Focus. Redirect that energy to what actually produces results. Your standards. Your routines. Your execution. Noise doesn't move me. Standards do. Repeat. Noise doesn't move me. Standards do. The goal isn't to avoid learning. The goal is to avoid distraction. Constructive input comes from evidence and experience, not idle opinions. Noise is cheap. Results are expensive. You have a choice. React to every voice, or react only to the standard. React to every outside influence, or react only to the internal compass that guides your discipline. Noise doesn't move me. Standards do. Think about your day. How often do you let a casual remark derail your focus? How often do you replay criticism in your head? How often do you modify plans to appease others? Every time you do, you're giving power to something meaningless. Your mental armor is built on detachment. Your operational armor is built on execution. Noise doesn't move me. Standards do. Here's a real-world example. Athletes are criticized publicly all the time. They face commentators, fans, analysts, and social media. Some perform worse under scrutiny. The best perform better. Why? They don't give noise authority. They measure success against standards. They measure performance against discipline. Noise doesn't move me. Standards do. Say it one more time. Noise doesn't move me. Standards do. And here's the final layer. Opinions often seek to manipulate. Praise tries to flatter. Criticism tries to control. Both want your energy. Your job is to give neither a seat at the table. Your standards are the only authority in the room. Your execution is the only currency that matters. Noise doesn't move me. Standards do. When you achieve this level of immunity, you become untouchable. Praise no longer inflates your ego. Criticism no longer shakes your confidence. Opinions no longer distract your execution. Noise doesn't move me. Standards do. This chapter is about mental sovereignty, about owning your reactions, about living and building on your terms. You've learned to stop explaining. You've learned to see doubt as proof. You've learned to use silence strategically. You've learned to stack work quietly without updates. Now you remove the last external chains. Noise doesn't move me. Standards do. And once you've mastered this, nothing can derail your focus, your discipline, or your results. Next, we talk about momentum, how to sustain growth day after day, relentlessly. Chapter 9. Let success do the talking. Here's a reality check you need to hear right now. Nothing silences doubt faster than undeniable results. Nothing validates your discipline better than proof in action. Nothing earns respect more efficiently than showing up and delivering consistently. Words are cheap. Explanations are cheap. Opinions are cheap. Results are expensive. They require effort. They require consistency. They require discipline. And the people who try to stop you? They'll talk. They'll mock. They'll speculate. Ignore them. I don't argue. I arrive. Say it again. I don't argue. I arrive. That's the mantra of high performers. They don't justify. They don't explain. They don't seek validation. They execute. They produce. They deliver outcomes that speak louder than their words ever could. Look around history. Elon Musk didn't explain why SpaceX was possible. He built rockets. They launched. The results silenced the doubters. Michael Jordan didn't argue about his talent. He scored points. He won games. He built a career that left criticism meaningless. Oprah didn't try to justify her vision. She built an empire. She transformed media. Her results spoke. Nothing silences doubt faster than undeniable results. Repeat it. Nothing silences doubt faster than undeniable results. Here's the principle. Your work doesn't need witnesses to validate it. Your effort doesn't need approval to count. Your progress doesn't need applause to be real. Wealth, discipline, physique, peace, all speak without explanation. Your savings account doesn't negotiate with critics. Your body doesn't argue with doubters. Your calm confidence doesn't beg for understanding. I don't argue. I arrive. Say it again. I don't argue. I arrive. When you master this, your life becomes your statement. Every metric of success, money, skill, influence, health, becomes a testimony. Every outcome reinforces your discipline. Every milestone makes doubt irrelevant. Look at your own life. How much energy have you wasted explaining yourself? How many arguments have you engaged in to defend your choices? How much time have you spent trying to prove people wrong verbally instead of showing them you're right through action? Stop it. I don't argue. I arrive. Every step you take should build visible, undeniable momentum. Every choice should reinforce your standards. Every habit should compound toward results. Doubt, mockery, disbelief, they are irrelevant. Your arrival is inevitable when your effort is relentless. Here's how to train it. Focus on outcomes, not opinions. Stop debating. Start producing. Measure yourself only by results, not recognition. Let your work define your value, not applause or approval. Stack small wins daily. Consistency compounds. Momentum multiplies. Doubt collapses under proof. I don't argue. I arrive. Say it slower. I don't argue. I arrive. The critics will keep talking. The envious will keep doubting. The insecure will keep mocking. Good. Let them. Your mission is not to convince them. Your mission is to produce. Your mission is to arrive. And when you arrive, the room changes. The ones who doubted, they respect you. The ones who mocked, they notice quietly. The ones who ignored you, they can't help but acknowledge the results. Nothing silences doubt faster than undeniable results. Repeat it one more time. I don't argue. I arrive. This is the ultimate form of discipline. You've mastered silence. You've outgrown rooms. You've detached from opinions. You've built quietly. And now your results speak. Stop trying to explain. Stop trying to justify. Stop trying to convince. I don't argue. I arrive. And when you arrive, the story writes itself. Next, we talk about maintaining that dominance, not just achieving it once, but sustaining it relentlessly. Chapter 10, They Won't Laugh at the End. Here's the final, uncompromising truth of this journey. By the time people respect you, they won't be laughing. The same voices that doubted, mocked, and minimized you, they'll suddenly rewrite history in their minds. They'll claim they always believed. They'll act as if your rise was inevitable. But you don't correct them. You don't argue. You don't clarify. You don't even notice. Because by then, you're too busy living. Say it with me. By the time they respect you, you'll be too busy living. This is the final level. The one most people never reach. All the lessons you've learned, stop explaining, embrace doubt, convert disbelief into fuel, move silently, build while they watch, become immune to opinions, let results speak. They all converge here. The people who laughed first, who whispered you can't, or you'll fail, will suddenly look at you differently. They'll act like they saw it all coming. And yes, it's tempting to point out the truth, that they didn't. Don't, because it doesn't matter. Their understanding is optional. Your results are not. By the time they respect you, you'll be too busy living. Let's break this down. The former doubters are useful. They're reminders of where you started. They're markers of how far you've gone. Their initial disbelief is confirmation. You were early. You were disciplined. You were doing the work when others were talking. And now they see the outcome. The wealth, the discipline, the growth, the peace, undeniable. And it's impossible for them to laugh now. But don't pause to bask in their surprise. Don't slow down to prove a point. Your momentum is your authority. Your focus is your crown. By the time they respect you, you'll be too busy living. This is the principle of detachment at its ultimate level. You move. They react. You don't stop. Every day you spend trying to prove a point is a day wasted. Every moment spent correcting a narrative is a moment stolen from your craft. Every second spent convincing doubters is energy that could have compounded into results. By the time they respect you, you'll be too busy living. Say it again. By the time they respect you, you'll be too busy living. History will remember your results. Not the noise along the way. Not the critics or the haters. Not the doubters who laughed early. Results don't need explanations. Results don't negotiate. Results don't beg for validation. And by the time respect arrives, you will have already moved on to your next level. Next challenge. Next goal. Next transformation. The irony is perfect. The very people who laughed at the beginning will admire you at the end. But by that point, their admiration is irrelevant. You've already expanded beyond the room they knew. You've already created the life they only imagined. You don't linger in their recognition. You don't wait for validation. You simply continue. By the time they respect you, you'll be too busy living. And that's the ultimate freedom. Freedom from needing permission. Freedom from needing understanding. Freedom from needing agreement. Everything you've learned in this book has led to this point. Stop explaining yourself. Recognize doubt as proof. Turn disbelief into fuel. Use silence strategically. Stop seeking understanding. Outgrow the room. Build quietly. Become immune to opinions. Let results speak. And finally, live beyond the laughter. By the time they respect you, you'll be too busy living. So don't waste energy correcting anyone. Don't pause for approval. Don't linger for acknowledgement. Move forward. Build bigger. Stack days, months, and years of discipline. Execute relentlessly. By the time they respect you, you'll be too busy living. And that is the ultimate victory. The final power move. The unshakable, undeniable truth. Their laughter was temporary. Your results are permanent. And by the time they respect you, you'll be too busy living. Say it one last time. By the time they respect you, you'll be too busy living. No explanation. No debate. No permission. Just life. Just discipline. Just results. You mastered the journey. Now master the living. They doubted you. And instead of breaking, you sharpened. You didn't argue. You didn't beg to be seen. You didn't slow down to convince anyone. You worked. You stacked days. You stayed silent. And that silence turned into leverage. That pressure turned into power. That doubt turned into discipline. This was never about proving them wrong. It was about proving yourself consistent. So here's your challenge. Stop explaining. Stop announcing. Stop waiting for belief. Use the doubt. Use the laughter. Use the underestimation. And starting today, outwork the memory of who they thought you were. Let them laugh now, because they won't later.